Marvelous Mrs. Menopause. It started as an off-the-cuff idea, a way to share a conversation about something that, quite frankly, there's very little conversation about, and look where we are. And I think we've had a little bit of influence on what's going on in the media world, which leads me to two amazing women, Denise Pines and Tamsin Vidal. I don't know, where are they? Up front. And these women have been immersed in the world of midlife, menopause, perimenopause, change, whatever you want to call it. Denise has done incredible things, going from market research. She has her own event in LA called Wise Pause every year. Tamsin, who is a world-renowned journalist, who has a book coming out very shortly called How to Menopause. Get on the list now, it's coming out in the spring. But these ladies are like, what can we do to make a difference? So they joined forces to create a documentary. It's the first documentary about menopause in the United States. It's powerful. It's called The M Factor. It's actually going to be on PBS in a few weeks. And we have a great opportunity, thank you, Tamsin, thank you, Denise, to show you, don't worry, it's just a little preview, but I think you're going to be very, very intrigued, and you're going to put this on your must-watch list. So let's take a moment and check it out. Oh, sorry. Actually, I was going to have Tamsin and Denise say something about the movie. Sorry.
Hi everybody, it's so exciting to see so many familiar faces off of Instagram and in person, so thank you for being here.
And so many friends.
And so many friends. Denise and I came together and we had a thought, an idea, working with two other producers on this documentary, and I don't think we had any idea when we had our first conversation what this was going to bring and where this was going to go.
No, we totally didn't. We were hoping that we would have something that we could cull it all together and tell a story that was going to be, informational, inspiring, uplifting, and to, continue this movement that all of you who are in the room are doing. And I think we've done that.
Yeah, what's interesting is when we first went out and talked to people, we would get an answer like, "There's no audience for menopause." And so, we were determined not to get discouraged, and we didn't, and we kept pressing ahead, and we were like, we know there's an audience. And so, thank you all for proving that this is more than just a film, that it's a movement, and thank you all for spearheading it and being in front.
I felt myself drawing into yourself and away from everyone because nobody understands.
I'm a board-certified OB/GYN, right, at an accredited program in this country. I got less than a month of training of menopause, and some of my colleagues don't even get that.
We're looking at the 20th anniversary of the reporting of the Women's Health Initiative and taking stock of what has happened in those 20 years. Very little.
We go through puberty and everybody's happy and excited and you can't wait. And then you go through pregnancy and it's parties. You go through menopause and nobody wants to hear about it.
When I went to the doctor and told them that I diagnosed myself and I think this is happening, they said, well, we'll see, let's just wait and see.
Women who have early menopause have not only an increased risk of cardiovascular disease, but also of dementia. So if something is bothering you and someone says it's in your head, it's like, of course it is. Everything is in my head. And hormones affect your brain.
Our brains run on estrogen starting at puberty. And they keep doing that until the end of their lives.
If you think about the impact of growing up in a racist society on your body, the trauma, it makes sense to me like as you get older, that trauma impacts your hormones.
All of a sudden you get
like heart fluctuations, and I thought, okay, it's just I'm having a panic attack, you know, and so then that messes with your mental psyche, you know, all of it.
Brain fog is a very weird phenomenon. It doesn't even actually have a term in medicine. Is that these changes can be so severe to prompt fears of either going crazy or developing dementia.
Women say, I just don't feel like myself anymore. I feel like I'm just a different person. Like, who is this person? I've lost myself.
And so I lost a lot of the confidence in the one thing that I knew how to do. If I can't read the teleprompter, the words that are in front of me, I can't be a journalist.
We have the cost of lost work productivity, women with lost wages. This is an enormous loss of human capital.
A lot of that was breast cancer. A lot of that is pregnancy-related conditions. How much of that really is dedicated to women over the age of 40? You can't even find it. They don't even keep records on how much research is done on menopausal women. That's how little has been done.
I think one of those damaging things we did to women is that we made them afraid of something their body naturally makes. I think it's devastating.
Is the last third of my life not as important as the middle third in my reproductive years?
I think that there is at least an understanding and awareness that women are not going to stand for it anymore. Women are waking up and saying, what? No one ever told me this. Well, we should all know.
I think we've met everybody on the floor, so we're going to jump right in. This is our third year, and I'd just like to say that it's been really louder. Is this better? Yeah. Okay. So the first conversation is really about how do we talk about menopause in modern life. And over the last couple of years that Lori and I have been involved in creating skincare for pre and postmenopausal women, we have seen a dramatic change. But having said that, the change is like going from 0 to 100, and we're only at about 15. So we're moving along. People are talking about menopause, perimenopause. You know, we still don't know whether there's 46, 92, 15 outcomes. There's no real correct, right or wrong answer, and that's okay, right? It's about discovery, but it's also about preparing, having the knowledge, having access to knowledge, having access to doctors, and being able to feel comfortable enough in your own skin to talk with your mom, with your besties, with random women at the office, and that it should be a normal conversation that is as simple as, what are you having for lunch tomorrow? Should be the same kind of thing. So on that note, we all agree that menopause is a largely ignored, this is for Tamsin, yet vital part of a woman's life. And we are now seeing some TV shows. For example, there's Dr. Bailey's perimenopause storyline on Grey's Anatomy, and we applaud that. And we see in Sarah Jessica Parker's and Just Like That and Hacks, women actually referencing some of the things that go on, whether it's brain fog or sleeplessness. So it becomes a normal part of the conversation and isn't all suppressed and nothing's happening. I would like to know, how exactly did you and Denise join forces? We know they came together, but what was the real impetus?
I think we were I think we were both having these conversations within communities and talking about it and coming to different events and seeing this conversation happen. But I think what we weren't seeing is it out in the media. And the time we came together was several years ago now, so this was not that kind of conversation. Maybe that was going on. We were starting to have it, we were starting to talk a little bit about it, but we realized that there are a couple of ways to be able to do that. And one is try to go into mainstream media and say, hey, we do have an audience, we do deserve to be heard, we do have a lot to say, and we have a lot more questions than we do answers. And I think that that's what we both discovered was really missing, and Denise has done so many incredible documentaries, and I've been a journalist for a long time, and all I want to do is ask questions and talk to people. And so, when we came together, we realized it was important, but it wasn't until we really, I don't think we realized truly, I don't think we realized until about a month ago when we put this trailer out, how big this was going to be, because of all of you. I have to say, we all like really put together and we had a big plan, but the truth is, when we put that trailer out, and we have had now over 100 people, 100 screenings scheduled across the country right now. In communities with women of 75 to 1,400 in some cases coming to theaters to watch this and talk about it. So I don't think we could have ever imagined what this was going to be.
I think for me, the international response has just, just floored me really, because we're having people reach out to us from Lithuania, Uruguay, so small countries to big countries like the UK, Canada, and Australia, New Zealand, places like that.
But why do you think that is? Do you think that
Common. It's common.
Yeah.
It happens to every woman across. This is something that's universal. And I think, I was sort of thinking about all my other films that have done really, really well. But this was the first film that is universal to all women, right? All women are going to go into menopause. Not necessarily are you going to have symptoms, but every woman has this. We all have this unique bond, and I think that bond has crossed oceans, right? And has really garnered attention, and it also tells me that no one's talking in their country about it. And so that's why they're embracing it and doing screenings. I mean, we have corporations doing screenings for 100 to 200 employees.
And as they should.
Yeah, exactly.
I have a question for you, Denise. Don't press it. Well, don't press it. Well, I think I screwed up, so I'm just gonna talk loudly, kids. So here's my question for Denise.
So Tamsin and Denise have been literally crisscrossing the country, speaking to the world's leading menopause doctors, all the latest experts. So I want to know, and Denise, by the way, has been extremely deep into this community since 2019. She's done this thing called the Femaging Project, which has an enormous amount of research. So I want to know, did you learn anything new when you were doing this?
I did actually. I think all of us learned something new. I was talking to Somi. She learned something new, and she's a physician. She was able to see the full film last night in Montclair. So for me, I think there were two things. One was Dr. Mosconi and talking about the brain. And so she shows the brain perimenopause, then menopause, perimenopause, the dip. And then on the other side, and on this other side, she shows how some women get a 20-year-old brain back. I didn't get that. Some women get the brain they had before they went in. I got that one back. But then the alarming note is some women actually deteriorate mentally. And so that's where our research is needed. What is happening inside this time frame that have some women coming out on the other side and not quite themselves? I think the other thing was the conversation around testosterone and how women can't get prescribed testosterone, and when it is prescribed, how what is available isn't available in the quantity it needs to be for women, and so you have to guess at how much to use inside of a packet. It's almost like looking at a tube of Colgate and saying I need 10% of that to brush my teeth. That's kind of what the prescribed way, if you actually can get it prescribed. So those were the two things that stood out the most.
Well, the testosterone thing is going to be explored a little further in the second conversation. But I want to talk to Carla because all the women here, but especially Carla, are in the public eye. They're influencing culture. They are the culture. And Carla's been on TV now for over 20 years. And I want to know, what do you think? Do you feel that people treat you differently than they did when you were younger? Do they say anything? Do they ever ask you? Do you ever talk about it in the workplace? What happens?
I want them to treat me differently than they did when I was 20 years old. I adult. I feel like there's a part of me that should be revered with my wisdom, and I bring out the inner Lindsay all the time. I was talking to somebody, and a friend of mine turned 53. She's like, "Oh, it's 35." I'm like, "Do you really want to be 35 again?" I mean, really, do you all really want to be that age again? I mean, every age I'm very grateful for. So I tend to speak out loud about where I am. When I turned 50, I talked about it. I've never been ashamed of my age. When I turned 60, I planned a whole campaign, called it 60. So even today I was on Tamron Hall. She's like, "Why do you look so good?" I said, "Because I'm 60.
And because you use Caire Beauty.
Okay, Caire Beauty. Okay, true that. But I think to that point, every show that I'm on, every episode, I challenge myself to say menopause at least once.
Do you really?
I absolutely do. Whether they air it or not, that's a whole other story.
By the way, Carla is on Halloween Baking Championship. She's a judge right now, and she's brilliant, and the show is hilarious and surprisingly intellectual. That's all I'm gonna say. You should check it out, and let's find out if she's really saying menopause on every episode. Seriously.
They won't, maybe they're cutting it.
What do they do? Like put like little stars next to it?
But when I can't remember something, I'm like, pause for the minute. And I'm not embarrassed. When I'm in mixed company, I talk about it because, as women, men have sisters, aunts, mothers. They're going through this as well.
This is for Tamsin. So we heard about Carla's experience and how she's very open and quite direct about the whole experience of menopause at onset. But in the M Factor, I love the fact that you guys got at the fact that women's identities, our modern identities, are often, whether we like it or not, defined by what we do at work. So, when we go to a party, we're like, I'm a doctor, I'm an engineer, I'm a designer, whatever it may be. So, what did you learn when you were interviewing all these women in the workplace? Is it better? What could make it better if it's not good?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think when it comes, what our research showed is there are not a lot of workplaces right now that know even what to do when it comes to a menopause policy. So it's definitely something that needs a lot more work. I think what I did notice, and I think we all have that depending on wherever the workplace is, I think it doesn't matter. I think that as we get older, unfortunately, a lot of people feel like they become a little invisible, not so relevant, and that's why we have to change that conversation. And it starts with continuing to have the conversation. It starts with having it in the workplace. It starts with not being afraid to approach managers about it. And so I think what we found in our research, looking at the documentary, going into workplaces, they didn't know that the number one thing women need is some support. They're not asking for a big fan at their desk. They're asking for some support. We will take that too. We have hand fans now. But they're asking for some support and understanding it. I don't think that comes with a very big price tag, and I think that that's the very least that they can do when we have women in the prime of their careers at work trying to get through it and working through all these symptoms.
But I also think that so many women get embarrassed because of a hot flash, and they're perceived as weak, like they can't handle the pressure. And I think that's that part.
Yeah, we can't let it work against them. That's where the conversation has to come in. Because you're right. Not everybody wants to walk up to their boss and say, like, hey, I'm going to need a day off since I'm not feeling so great. You don't want to seem weakened. You don't want to seem not relevant.
Right. I think I had a bigger conversation about my hair going gray than my brain fog.
That's understandable because the brain fog speaks to cognition, and that's literally how intelligent, how smart, how capable you are, and nobody wants to admit that that's in any way compromised. And so it becomes very difficult, and actually there's a lot of research that shows that a significant amount of women actually self-depart from the workplace because they feel that they can't keep up. I want to say right here, right now, none of you should be that person because there's things that can be done. That's for sure. Okay. Denise, your turn.
Okay.
About the workplace?
Yeah, I want to hear about the workplace. What are you thinking?
The workplace is interesting. So I do menopause training in the workplace. I had a client actually call me today because they found out about the film. I never told them about the film. And they said, oh my God, I was looking at something and saw your name connected, and I think this is your film. Can you come in and do like all of our entire company? And I was like, yes, I just did a few offices. And I said, sure, you can do that. They were like, well, we want to show the whole film and then have a talk. And I said, okay, that's not typically what we've been doing, but I'll do that. I also remember having, going into a company, and the man brought me in, we sit on the board together. And I said, Jeff, I don't think you really know what I do, right? So I tell him a little bit about what I do. And he's like, hey, I think let me talk to our people. I'd love to have you come in and talk. So he was part of the whole group as we were planning what we were going to do. And then at one point he says, look, Denise, and everybody, I don't want anybody coming to me to talk about menopause. And I'm like, Jeff, you brought me in to this conversation. Why are you so uncomfortable? I don't know, I'm just uncomfortable. I said, okay, this is what we have to work on. This is what we have to work on. Right?
So what did you advise him to do? Is he supposed to find a therapist to learn how to talk to women?
Some people might not really ever get through, but what needs to happen, he needs to be comfortable enough to refer to a champion inside the company. Right.
Okay. That's a great idea.
Right.
Did you tell them that? I'm sure you did.
So we created champions inside the company that can happen. Because that's very real. Right? That's very real.
It's amazing. I wanted to give Carla an opportunity because she hasn't seen the film yet. I'm curious to know, you haven't seen the film. It's debuting on what, the 17th or 18th? 17th on PBS. If you were to do a film about menopause, what would it be? Would it be about you? Would it be about lots of women? Would it be about a particular aspect? Just freewheeling idea here.
I think part of it, and my biggest fear about menopause, and one of the new things that I've discovered is the brain health and dementia, and how estrogen is all over our bodies, not just in our vaginas and breasts. And so my biggest fear is looking at my mother with her dementia and knowing that I carry that gene. And so I have continued to get brain scans, and for me, HRT is not an option because I have to protect myself, and we're living, and in my family, women live really long. So I would want it to be about how long can I take HRT? What effects does it have on my body? How good will I feel? What does my brain look like? How can I retard that?
The plaque buildup.
Yes, thank you. That
worries me. We all, we're trained as kids to worry about plaque in our teeth. Quite frankly, plaque in our brains is like 1,000,000 times more serious, right? Seriously. I hear you. So my mom is, I'm embarrassed to say, I'm not exactly sure how old she is. It's not my fault. She's Chinese and she has multiple birthdays that she chooses at will. And actually she doesn't celebrate any of them. But she did tell me some years ago that her mom, my grandmother, who I was very fond of, at the very end of her life, and luckily it was only at the very end of her life, but in her 90s, she clearly had dementia, and she didn't recognize anybody but the one child who saw her every day. So I can't help, it's an awful thing. It's now in the back of my head. Every time I talk to my mom, I notice if she even has a split second of hesitation on any conversation. And it's totally unfair because I find myself almost looking, seeking, or at the same time reassuring myself, actually she's like smarter than I am, it's okay, right? But it's hard to know. And the link between all the menopausal symptoms, perimenopausal symptoms, and dementia is only now being discovered. The research, they're not joking, it's less than 15 million. The research associated with with what sleeplessness, what food, what skin change, all these things, believe it or not, every single one of them has a direct correlation to dementia. It's shocking.
But the hot flashes, like the hot flashes, and so that it does something to the brain. So, and my mother is still getting hot flashes at 83. Wow, child.
That's scary. Oh my God.
I don't get hot flashes, so I'm like,
well, that's a good thing, right? But we don't know. So we're looking for affirmations. Interesting. I think that.
Well, yeah, I guess what I want to say is I'm grateful that we're looking for those things and talking about it, because 5 years ago I wouldn't have been. I wasn't talking about it. I wasn't thinking about it. You know, menopause was an old lady thing. It had nothing to do with me until I landed on the floor of the bathroom. So, you know, the fact that we're having this conversation in a room, and this is your 3rd year, and I've watched this room fill up and have more, really, and watch this community grow and continue to have the conversation. So I'm grateful for that, and wonder where we're going to be, you know, in 2 years or 3 years in terms of hopefully pushing for that research.
I am going, Denise, do you have something to add? Are you good? I would like to open the floor up. We have about 3 or 4 minutes. If anybody has a question, we're going to take her.
Oh, yes.
Oh, I forgot. We don't have my glasses. Introduce yourself.
Oh, hi, I'm Shirley. I think we met last year. I'm Tammy's sister.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you. You changed my life, literally. I'm on HRT because of you. You're my sister, and I was wondering, I heard that you have to be on a certain amount of estrogen to have long-term heart benefits. And I'm wondering, what's the latest information on that? What's the minimum dose?
I think we're going to bring a doctor up here. I don't feel comfortable. I would say this. 99% of the information that you hear about HRT that's negative is wrong. I'm serious.
So we treat symptoms, but when we're looking at levels, greater than 20, less than 100 is where we want you to be. And that will usually treat your symptoms, protect bone, brain, and heart. And the only reason we would go up with your patch, your pill, your gel, is if you are still symptomatic. So we don't chase the lab as long as it's greater than 20. Does that make sense?
Yes, so you have to have a blood test.
Evidence-based data shows yes, serum testing is what is supported. That doesn't mean, you'll see in the film, we weren't included in clinical research trials until 1993, so we're doing the best that we can. But as a board-certified OBGYN, do I support spit, saliva, or urine testing? No.
Hi, my name is Eden, and I have a 2-part question. The first is, we focus so much on hot flashes that I feel like we need to bring more awareness to a lot of the other symptoms. When I went through menopause, well, I'm still going through, but I got the Epstein-Barr virus, and there's a lot of, we're starting to see more research about the connectivity between the Epstein-Barr virus. So I was curious if you could talk about some of the other symptoms that maybe are not as like people don't know about as much as hot flashes. And then also, why when women are diagnosed with like premature ovarian failure, which I was at 36, they don't talk to you about what to do after potentially giving birth. They throw you on the pill and they're like, good luck. And so I'm wondering if there's any more research on that. Thank you.
I think that we should move this question to after the second. But having said that, it is true that there's some very unusual, and I hate the word symptom because it implies that menopause, which 100% of us are going to have, is a disease. It's a transition, it's an era. Lori and I like to call it a manifestation or at worst an issue. So here's a crazy one. Some women have what's called burning mouth syndrome. and you literally feel like your mouth is on fire. Luckily, it didn't happen to me, but it did happen to a friend of mine, and it took her a very long time to understand that it was associated with menopause. If weird things are happening, I would just say, find yourself a NAM certified doctor, perhaps more than one. And you know, the internet can be very useful. And there's some amazing communities that are being built on the internet and off the internet where women are very willing to share and care. So if you have one of those 1 in 1,000, 1 in 500 situations, you have somebody who maybe has already gone through it and can share it with you. I hope that helps a little bit. Last question. What?
Hi, I'm Basanta. First of all, I love this conversation. I'm a business advisor working in women's health. I'm working with companies that fill in gaps in healthcare services for women by advising on their financial goals and capital strategy. And I feel like one of my purposes is to talk about women's health in rooms where people are not talking about women's health, especially to a lot of times it's women that don't understand women's health and what women's health is, and then also to men. I had a conversation last week with the guy who circled back to menopause and asked me, so what should I be doing because my wife is going through menopause and I don't want to get divorced because I don't understand how to help her and it's really stressful and I don't want to have this happen. So other than saying the word menopause every single conversation that you can, which I love that, what other advice would you have in that situation?
You know, I love this question because that is a big concern, and we've noticed more and more that men are coming up to us and saying, what can I do? First of all, if you're going to view this film or watch this film, bring a guy with you. Really, because this is information that everybody needs. Half the world is going to go through menopause, the other half is going to be dealing with us. And that's the first part of it. And, you know, I think the second thing to do is educate in whatever way you know how. And, you know, I was thinking about what you said, Lisa, not knowing, you know, that you didn't feel comfortable with it. But the reason men don't feel comfortable with it is because we're barely comfortable with it at this point. We're just learning how to feel comfortable with that conversation. So I think not being shy, bringing it up in every conversation, whether it's on television or in a room, and bringing it up in a way where it's not a whisper and a joke. I mean, I think the worst thing that we can do is make it a joke because we're not comfortable with it and we feel like it's something we're doing wrong or we're not enough. Is just really a sin. So I think that the best thing we can do, look, there's funny moments, there's no question about it, but the best thing that we can do is continue to bring it up no matter how uncomfortable somebody feels around us.
How do we bring it to our companies?
Hi, Caire came up from Washington, D.C. for this, so thank you so much for putting on this event. I left my Fortune 5 company back in June because I was experiencing what I thought was chronic stress, which is actually like, I'm going to find out perimenopause. And I've developed a group of 100 executive women that are just like creating a safe space to have conversations around perimenopause. So, yeah, again, anybody that's an executive woman wanting to be included, happy to include you. But what I wanted to ask is, again, because there are so many symptoms, what did you guys experience as your first symptom that said, this is not who I am? And then also, when did you make a decision to pivot to, like, this is who I'm going to be, or this is what I'm going to focus on from a career perspective going forward?
Wow, I think that's going to take 20 minutes, but maybe a one-word answer. So for me, it was joint pain.
Hot flash.
Brain fog.
Yeah, mine was a hot flash and heart palpitations. And then I think when I realized I was going to pivot is I couldn't stop talking about it. I was a news anchor for 30 years and I just couldn't stop having the conversation, and I realized this is probably the biggest story of my lifetime right now.
And I had heart palpitations that landed me in hospital. So it just tells you, and we have one final question that's very quick.
Right here. No. She's been waiting for okay.
It's just really simple. It's about how can we do the showing of the movie. I represent 13,000 women's health nurse practitioners, and we have many who are seeking to be NAMS, which is now the Menopause Society. So for those of you that are looking for more information, they've renamed themselves. Lots of us still call them NAMS, but it's now the Menopause Society. They're the ones that have the certification for OBGYNs, nurse practitioners, certified nurse midwives who are seeking to become menopause experts. So I'm interested in showing the film. We have a menopause summit and we have an annual meeting, so I'd love to have it at both of those.
Rachel,
So the film was accredited as a CME, so for the nurses and doctors and PAs. We're doing a live webinar with a couple of the menopause experts showing the film, of course, and they will receive a 90-minute credit towards the renewal of their license. So that's what's happening with the film.
The film is amazing. Rachel, last question, thank you.
I'm Rachel, thank you. I'm thrilled to be here because I remember having, no one usually says they can't hear me. Because I remember years ago with Tamsin when it was just an idea, so congratulations. It looks like it was easy to get here now that you have a beautiful finished film in this beautiful space with hundreds of women, but like everything else in women's health, it's a slog, so congratulations. Thrilled that we're having all these conversations, thrilled that we have all this momentum, thrilled that people want to have screenings, wonderful that people are interested in talking to Somi and other healthcare practitioners in this space. I come from the money side. None of this works unless we continue to drive really, really significant investment in women, in the companies, in creating real wealth for people, because as great as it is to talk about it, no one cares unless they're making money. So how will you use the film, or how can you use the film to use it as a catalyst to drive money from investors, not just the government, that's a separate issue, from investors and people with wealth, especially female angels, to say, put your money where your mouth is?
I'll say one thing that this film can do is help to get you to understand the issue. Because I think a lot of investors, if they're young, if they're male, they really don't understand this issue. And I think when you watch, there's no way that you cannot connect to any of the women that are in the film. You will see someone that reminds you of your mom, your grandmother, your sister, your aunt. So I think the film can be a catalyst towards helping create awareness that this is something that it impacts a lot of women, diverse women. So I think that's one way it can be used, obviously. I mean, we're using it now to train physicians and nurses, and we're working to train dentists. We have a segment in the film where we talk about oral health and menopause. No one ever talks about that impact.
Yeah, I would say this, I think when things get attention, money eventually follows, not as fast as we would like. We had lots of rejections and lots of no's. And we had to keep pushing through. What I did notice, and this happened a little bit earlier, is I was asked to come to Advertising Week in New York City. Big place, never been on a stage here before myself, I had nothing to add to it, and was asked to talk about menopause today with Katie. Where's Katie? Who did an incredible job, having this conversation. What was incredible about it was because we were talking about the marketplace, and we were talking about menopause, and we were talking about money. That room filled up very quickly. So I do believe there's a correlation. I don't think it's A to B, but I think we're going to get there.
All right, thank you. Thank you, everybody. So I'd like to introduce Elena Espinosa, who's the editor-in-chief of Flow Space, and by the way, they very graciously offered us these beautiful canvas bags, so thank you. Also, Age Space, a modern look at media. It's a digital and live media platform dedicated 100% to women's health with a focus on functional well-being and long-term vitality. So they're doing storytelling, but it's science-backed storytelling, and they're focusing on all the things that we're touching upon here, whether it's brain, heart, bone, medical innovation, menopause, perimenopause, postmenopause, and everything else. So I'm very delighted that Alina is going to moderate the second panel, which is called Sex, Hormones, and Menopause. So if our other panelists could come forward, Alina will introduce you. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Hello. I hope you're ready for this conversation. It was very interesting listening listening to the previous panel. Sorry, am I getting weird feedback? No, good, okay. And hearing about all the symptoms that doctors don't recognize, don't know to talk to women about. Because one of the more common experiences, I would say, that women go through in menopause is feeling an impact on their sex life. But if you think doctors don't want to talk to you about hot flashes and brain fog, they definitely don't want to be having this conversation. So I am really excited to be having this talk tonight with this group of experts who, this is all they talk about. So allow me to introduce Dr. Alicia Jackson, who is the CEO and founder of EverNow, a telehealth company that offers perimenopause and menopause care. Next to her is Gabriella Espinoza, and funny story, we have almost the same name. I am Galina Espinoza, she is Gabriella Espinoza. We are not related. We met 5 minutes ago. And we definitely do not do the same thing because she has spent about 15 years as a sexual wellness coach for women in midlife and also hosts a podcast called Pleasure in the Pause, all about menopause and sexuality. Next we have Dr. Sonia Javed, who is a board-certified OBGYN and the founder of Her MD, which is really disrupting the clinical experience for women's health care. Thank you for doing that. And finally we have Dr. Rocio Salas-Whalen, who is a triple board-certified endocrinologist who not only focuses on hormonal health, but is also an expert on weight gain and GLP-1s, which is a whole other conversation maybe for next year. Thank you all for joining me. I wanted to start by having each of you share with the audience one thing that you would like women in menopause to know about how this transition impacts your sex life. Whether it's through your own experience or something that you've heard from a client or a patient. Dr. Jackson, I'll start with you.
It's going to change. End of story, period. But that doesn't mean you have to roll with the change. Your body will act differently as you go into perimenopause and menopause. How could it not? You no longer have the degree of estrogen that you once had. Sex isn't just a nice to have. For many women, it is a must have, especially in their relationships for their own enjoyment of life, and it truly is about your health. It's not just a symptom. If sex is painful or your libido is 0, we see painful sex go down over 75% within 2 months using vaginal estrogen. This $8 tube of vaginal estrogen.
I love that you came with props.
I did, of course. It should be on the toothpaste side. Literally. But it's up to you how you want to navigate it. If you're fine not having sex or penetrative sex or whatever, go with it. That's up to you. You're in charge of your own life. And this is the best part about menopause is that this freedom that comes with not caring what anybody else wants for you, just what you want for you. So whatever you want, you do it. You want testosterone, go for it. You want vaginal estrogen, go for it. You don't want any of those, that's totally cool too.
Great. Gabriella?
One thing I want every woman in this room to know is that menopause does not mean the end to sexual pleasure. There is light at the end of the vaginal tunnel. My friend Esther Bloom says she was the last guest on my podcast. And it all starts with you getting to know yourself and really asking yourself the question, what does pleasure mean to me? What does pleasure mean to me? With the right support, the right medical care, the right education, you can start doing the inside job that lets you define what pleasure means to you. And so I work with a lot of women adopting a pleasure mindset. We don't, like as Dr. Jackson said, if you don't want to go down the route of sexual pleasure, sex, that doesn't have to be, that's not it for you right now, that's fine. But starting with defining what pleasure means to you, redefining it. So much of our lives has been about giving our pleasure away. deprioritizing our pleasure, making sure that everyone else is enjoying, having pleasure besides us. And so really adopting a pleasure mindset, really thinking about what brings me joy, what lights up my life, what brings a smile on my face, a spring in my step, really starting there to do that deep inner reflection of what it is you want pleasure to look like in this second half of life, and it can get better.
Dr. Jabay?
The World Health Organization says that sexual health care is a basic human right.
Yes.
It is a basic human right. So it is beyond treating an infection, contraception, or fertility. So we need to talk about women's pleasure, arousal, orgasm, pain, lubrication, and satisfaction.
I want that on a poster.
It's called the FSFI. You can all take it.
I'm gonna piggyback a little bit on that. And
We'll get back to it. Yes, I'll take it. 19 questions, and then I'll interpret it for you.
I always say sexual health is health to begin with. But one thing that I see clinically that upsets me a lot and that I want everyone here to know is that no, if you have somebody, if your doctor tells you this is how it's going to be now, take no for an answer, because it is not true. This is now how it is in your 40s, in your 50s, and just suck it up. I think it's really important that we understand that that is not the only option, right? We deserve to continue. It doesn't have to be different, it doesn't have to be better, it doesn't have to be less, but we deserve to continue with the same sexual life that we had in our pre-menopausal years.
And yet we know that the medical system is not necessarily set up to have these conversations. So Dr. Jabay, I know you've done some research into how to get better outcomes from your doctor visits. It's something you're doing through your work with her at D, trying to reinvent the women's healthcare model. How, if someone is going to leave this conversation today and go have a conversation with their doctor tomorrow and say, I'm not happy with my sex life, I need help, what is the best way to have that conversation?
So first you want to find the right provider. So where we talked about Menopause Society, there's a society for sexual health providers as well, sex nerds. It's called ISWISH, the International Society for the Study of Women's Sexual Health. So ISWISH. So talk to the right person, otherwise it's like being with the wrong sexual partner. It's just not going to happen. So that's the first step. The second step is, I'm not joking, take that FSFI. It's 19 questions. You can download it, take it in, and say, look, I'm having an issue. And then you can give your provider data so that they can talk to you about evidence-based treatment options. Go to a doctor that has more than 5 minutes to spend with you. I was teaching a CME, and about a third of the room, continuing medical education. There were 350 OBGYNs in the room. About a third of the audience said they were down to 7-minute appointments. Not by choice. So how do you talk to someone about intimacy, get their medical history, do their exam, and then talk to them about options? It's not possible. So find the right provider, find the right environment, and know your anatomy. So learn, talk to your friends, get on trusted resources, and then go in prepared, and that's when the magic happens. Because there are options.
I love that you mentioned know your anatomy, because this is super critical and not something that all of us are comfortable with, exploring our own bodies, taking ownership in that way. I know that's something that you do a lot of in your work. Can you talk to us about how you get your clients to feel comfortable?
Well, I want to ask you a question that I ask all my clients, and what is your relationship with your vulva? My relationship to my vulva is fill in the blank.
Should we hand out cards?
I'll add that to our quiz.
There is so little we have been taught about our sexual anatomy. And then we arrive to menopause, experience all the changes of menopause, and experience the deep internalized shame and silencing around this amazing but invisible part of our bodies. And ignorance is not bliss. And you all know this, that's why you're here. Knowledge is power, as Dr. Gervais just mentioned. Know your vulva, befriend, I like to say befriend your vulva, know all her parts. Take out a mirror, have a good look in the mirror. If you need a glass of wine, go ahead, get a glass of wine. Get comfortable, take a mirror and explore your sexual anatomy. Know where your mons pubis is, where your clitoris is, the inner, outer labia, the urethral, the urethra, the vaginal opening, the anus, the perineum. And then, know what your normal is, report any changes to your doctor, and then take pleasure into your own hands. Explore. Explore what pleasure means to you. And you can do this with your hands, you can do this with a little mini vibrator, and a womaness is in the room and they sell this gorgeous mini gold vibes bullet vibrator. Have fun, enjoy, exploring the pleasure that resides between your legs. And then when you know what gives you pleasure there, communicate this to a partner. Guide your partner into what feels good. Show them self-pleasure in front of your partner. It is hot. When your partner witnesses you enjoying that kind of pleasure. And have a conversation of what feels good to you and where you want to be, where you want to, how you want to experience pleasure with your own sexual anatomy.
Of course, sometimes even after doing all that, it may not be enough. So Dr. Jackson, I would love for you to hold up the vaginal estrogen again and give us the vaginal estrogen 101. Obviously, use of hormones, very nuanced, very complex, very custom individual based. But what is kind of the level set that everyone should have before their next doctor's appointment?
99% of you in this room can take this. Whether you're 20, whether you're 30, 50, 60, 70, 80, 100, you can take this. It's very low dose estrogen. You can put it on the outside, you can put it on the inside. I put it even on my face. Yes, you can do that too. Unfortunately, there is still a black box warning by the FDA on this. Warning women against cancer, cardiovascular effects, dementia. That will not happen with this. And it's infuriating. And I'm so happy that Let's Talk Menopause is on the bandwagon of getting this off, but we need everybody's voices on this because this literally should be sold over the counter. I believe in the UK now, it is. It's that harmless. Yes, there's 1% of the population who can uptake this, but it's incredibly effective and it's preventative. What most women don't know is that, this is a terrible name, genitourinary symptom of menopause, horrible, GSM, is the fact that when your vaginal tissues, your bladder tissues don't get exposed to estrogen anymore, they irreversibly atrophy. And so you should be using this a few times a week, just like brushing your teeth, and it is preventative and restorative. It works, and it works quickly.
And what exactly does it do?
It puts estrogen back in all the places that it needs. So it'll help reduce UTIs, it'll prevent bladder infections, it'll keep your skin flexible, moist, help with painful sex. All the things that we think about for skincare, you should be thinking about for vaginal care. Tissue that's even more sensitive and needs more than your skin that you have on your face. You should be taking as good of care of your vaginal tissue as you are as your skin. That should be part of your nightly routine. Unfortunately, insurance coverage is terrible on this. When my doctor went to look it up, my insurance didn't cover it. It was going to cost me $70 a month. This tube on Mark Cuban Cost Plus Drug Pharmacy is $8. $5 shipping. It's why our company, we just decided to include it with membership. It's crazy.
And as outrageous as all that is, one of the other things that I personally find very infuriating is that there are something like 27 treatments for male sexual dysfunction. And I think there are 2 FDA approved for women. So Dr. Salas-Wellen, I was hoping that you could talk about the 2 FDA approved measures for women, but also let's start talking about testosterone, which is not FDA approved, but is something that a lot of doctors are nonetheless prescribing for their patients.
So in 2019, there was a global consensus with international and national medical societies, including the Endocrine Society, the Gynecology Society, the Royal College in the UK, that all agree that in postmenopausal women with hypoactive sexual desire disorder, which I'll briefly talk about, we should use testosterone. Now, what we don't have is an FDA presentation that is designed for women, but we can use it for HSDD. So HSDD, hypoactive sexual desire disorder, is characterized by 6 months or more of lack of sexual fantasies, sexual desire, avoidance of sexual encounters with your partner or even with yourself, and also not initiating sexual activity to the point that it causes distress either in yourself or in your relationship, right? So if you have that, you have hypoactive sexual desire disorder. We separate it in the premenopausal and postmenopausal. Testosterone currently is for the postmenopausal, but we don't have anything that says that we cannot use it in the perimenopausal stage either. Now we have 2 FDA drugs approved for HSDD and premenopause, which is Addyi, which is a pink pill that you take every night at bedtime, and in about 4 to 6 weeks you notice an increase in the arousal and sensation in your genital area. And then we have another one, which is Bilesi. This is a subcutaneous injection that you do 4 hours prior to sexual encounter, and you can only use it about 8 times per month, right? But really, that treats more blood flow through the genital area, through the arousal, and more response. But from the psyche, from the part of our brain, is testosterone. And testosterone improves sex drive or works on sex drive in 4 different ways. In our brain, in physical changes in our genitals. Also, it improves our mood, our energy, which sometimes during this time the energy is low and then maybe changes in the mood, including depression, that it doesn't allow you to feel sexual. And in the brain, in the limbic area, in the hypothalamus, is where the sexual desire happens. So we have receptors for testosterone, and this is going to increase not just your desire, but also your response to sexual activity. And then there's physical changes. It also increases vaginal lubrication.
Obviously very complex. Dr. Gervais, do you want to weigh in there?
Yes, I have to. I'm sorry, because this really makes me mad. So there are 29 options for men in this country right now that are FDA approved. There are 2 for women. Addyi has been on the market for 9 years. Less than 5% of providers know about this optionality. Less than 1% of women do.
Yeah, how many women in this room have heard of Addyi? Okay.
Okay.
All right. You are ahead of the room.
Yes. But, you know, to me, it's like patients are told there's nothing we can do. Drink some wine and you'll be fine. Hey, I love wine, but it's not Addyi. And so women are being deprived of evidence-based, FDA-approved options and not even being told about them. The Addyi and Vyleesi are both non-hormonal. They work on neurochemistry. They proved 3 things in the clinical outcomes. Number 1, increased sexually satisfying events, meaning it eradicated the, oh my God, check a box sex, or I love him so I'll do it. Number 2, it increased...
I know what you're talking
You know what you're talking about. Girl, I've been married 28 years, so I know all about that. But, and it made it satisfying. Number 2, it increased desire, because there's spontaneous desire and there's responsive desire. And number 3, it decreased the distress associated with, I'm not who I used to be. That's huge when it comes to sexuality, right? Sexual health leads to confidence. What happens in the bedroom affects what happens outside as well. And so that's why I get so fired up. Testosterone is also available. Yes, we can prescribe male formulations, but we can compound it as well. So there are other ways to get it in your hands, and there are other countries where it is approved and available. Yes. So
They have a female version of the show.
So move to Australia. That's our advice.
We can get a prescription. We prescribe we always prescribe testosterone for men. I personally don't use compounded medication. I like FDA-approved drugs exclusively. And we can prescribe testosterone. We just prescribe 1/10 of what a male will use. And actually, many times it's not covered by insurance, but you get a box that is going to last you 10 months, and it's about $130. So it's really inexpensive, even if your insurance is not covered.
And I can see Dr. Jackson wants to jump in here.
Very clear, I'm a PhD, not an MD, so this is not medical advice. But if on your next trip to Mexico, you could buy
close your ears.
It is possible.
I mean, you can get it for $130 for 10 months.
Yeah.
Is that not
Yeah.
I mean, that's the deal.
This is what happens when you put too many doctors on a panel. I love the differing opinions. So I compound and we check levels. We use something called the TopiClick system. I was actually featured on Oprah. It takes the guesswork out of it. When you see the movie, you'll see what I'm talking about with Kelly Casperson, about trying to guess how much of the tube to squeeze out. You turn it till you hear an audible click, and it dispenses the amount of testosterone you need. So that's my choice, but a lot of other providers prefer using 1/10 of male dosing, which is fine, and I think they're equally cost effective.
Yeah, I mean, it's FDA study, right, versus compounded medication, not necessarily. And with anybody using compounded, FDA approved, you should have a baseline testosterone to begin with, because we're not going to give testosterone to anybody who has an elevated testosterone level. We don't care if it's low or it's normal. We only care that it's not high. Once your testosterone is normal and we start you on any source of testosterone, any presentation of testosterone, and 4 weeks from you starting, we have to check your level. And then every 3 months, we have to check your level. Difference from HRT, which is estrogen and progesterone, we don't check your levels. We go by symptoms. But testosterone, we do want to avoid those symptoms or those side effects that people hear: growing facial hair, anger, irritability, rage, hair loss. All of that can be prevented. It's not either you have a sex drive, but you're going to have these side effects. No, that is not true. If you are within the normal range, you will only get the positive results and benefits from testosterone, not the negative.
We've been talking a lot about men here. We're saying the word men a lot. And I'm wondering where men fit into this conversation, or your partner or your spouse.
This is about
have a conversation with your partner in a way that feels comfortable, but also acknowledges what you are going through. That can be a very difficult space to go in. Deborah, I'd like to start with you.
You have to just start, right? You just have to, it's uncomfortable, it's very vulnerable, and menopause causes changes in my body, it causes changes in my desire, it causes changes of me being in the mood, and I'd like to have this conversation with you. You can ask for support, either emotional support if you just want them to listen, if you want them to help you, clean the dishes before you go to bed, ask for what you need, and especially in the bedroom, ask for more time, more slowness, more gentleness. And on a scale, I just had Kelly Casperson on my podcast. We need to remove the expectation of penetration out of the bedroom. And so on a scale of 1 to 10 on the arousal scale, if it's not an 8, don't penetrate. Right? Your vulva is, you need to listen to your vulva. Our vulvas talk to us. Our vulvas will tell us, yes, it's time. Yes, 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 and they will also tell us no, right? And so it's so important to listen to your vulva and know when the time is to really go deeper.
Amazing advice. I think we have about 2 minutes left, so I do want to open it up if anyone has a question right here, since I saw you first. Go ahead, Sean.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm glad I didn't make it the first time because I have this panel of physicians here. Sorry.
And we're Howard Tribe.
Yes. My question isn't so much about how menopause affects sex, but since you guys are talking a lot about hormones, I do have a medical kind of related question. There was a stat shown on the film here earlier about how Black women experience menopause and much worse, and we also know that Black women also more inclined to have fibroids. And so I'm really curious to know if there was any research around how fibroids affect hormone levels, how that ultimately affects your experience with menopause.
Oh, we need a mic.
Oh,
sorry. Oh, right.
So obviously, we need more research in this area, for sure, because just like Black women and minority women have more severe hot flashes, more likely by the age of 50, 90% of Black women will have at least one fibroid. We also know that hormone therapy can cause fibroids to grow. Sometimes they can have abnormal uterine bleeding, but it's not a contraindication to give women hormone therapy. I've been involved with the White Dress Project and Below the Belt about education. And the bottom line is because women were left out of clinical research trials and not mandated until 1993, particularly minority women, we have a real void in this area and we need to do more research, honestly.
Yeah. Thank you. So yes, given my background as a scientist, one of the things we vowed to do when we started the company was use every ounce of data we could, because I was so tired of hearing we just don't have the data. And the honest answer is no pharma company is incentivized to run the trial today. And so it takes us advocating our congressional leaders, our lawmakers, but also supporting companies that can actually do the research. Black women have over twice as severe symptoms than nearly any other community of women, Hispanic women as well. Clearly there are differences. There are disparities in care that are significant. And it's just incredible to me that something that has existed for so long we know so little about.
Lauren. Hi, I'm Lauren Tenbaum, and I'm a social worker. I specialize in supporting women through life transitions, women in their 20s, 30s, 40s, who are mostly moms. They're touched out anyway, so we're right here, though. So I was struck by the description of, getting back to your sex drive before perimenopause, when the sex drive is low to begin with. And I'm writing a book about preparing millennials for menopause, and I learned about the 2 FDA-approved options, and when I asked my own providers about them, they had no idea. So can you tell us a little bit, and none of my friends have any idea, no clue. Tell us a little bit more about the movement to educate providers and women who need to advocate for themselves to get this information.
So I was just in North Carolina last week at the headquarters of the company who are kind of relaunching the initiative to teach providers and to teach patients about this optionality. I was part of the team that went to the FDA. There was a black box warning with the drug, just like there is with vaginal estrogen. And so the drug got a bad rap, and they didn't understand the difference between, having one more sexually satisfying event versus not. And so you had a bunch of white men, honestly, I was in the room on the other side of the table, quantifying what that meant and evaluating that. And even Vyleesi, you touched upon this, a month's dose is 8 dosages. So it's a drug you give yourself on demand like Viagra, but the FDA decided that 8 times is enough because that's the number of times you need to have sex. And so when you talk about barriers to women and sexuality, you have women who outnumber men in the workforce, but not in the decision-making rooms. You don't have data. Less than 2% of us are female funded founders. You don't have time with your doctor. You have this incredible bias that women are either baby makers or vehicles for male pleasure. And you have this toxic gaslighting of women. And so you have all of these cards stacked against you. And then you have stigma, taboo, and shame, right? Like you want to talk to your doctor about sexuality. And I once had a provider say, I can't get my own wife interested. How am I going to help you? And so, right. And even I stood there in shock. And I remember taking in that moment saying, I am going to be the exact opposite. And so you have all of these barriers and biases. And so Addie came with this incredible weight that it is now shaking. There was a great article that just came out last week. It was featured in People magazine. So I think the drug is having a reawakening, and people are also learning about Vyleesi, and we're eradicating the shame that women are allowed to have desire, and sex is not just for procreation.
Dr. Jackson? Yeah.
I'm sorry. I just want to say one thing, which is what might work for your girlfriend in terms of treatment, whether it's Aggie or Vyleesi or testosterone, may not work for you. Turns out women are complex. I know the team who developed Viagra. They tried using it on women and they're like, oh, it turns out sex for women is about the brain. So much about sex for women is about the brain. It's much more complex and complicated, which is why we need more sophisticated treatments.
Yeah, so with women, it's the
Biopsychosocial approach. Biology, psychology, social. Like if you're pissed at him, if you have a male partner, like it's not gonna happen. But if he's pissed at you and you look rockin', it can still happen. Because they're more likely to have spontaneous desire. So you hit the nail on the head. It's biopsychosocial. There are apps out there, Rosie, Written Erotica, I love it. Dipsy, Audio Erotica, vibrators that now have data. Direct-to-consumer lubricants and moisturizers. I mean, there's a ton of options. So anyone who tells you you just have to live with it is just full of it.
I think one more question.
And you can come to HerMD in Millburn, New Jersey, expanding quickly.
Expanding very quickly, yes.
And they're almost sold out. We have a new doctor.
Yes.
So.
And trained.
Yes.
New doctor, trained, yes.
Exactly. So last question, but HerMD is not far.
So mine is really more of a comment and a thank you. I'm Paula Greensmith. I'm here from the Black Women's Health Imperative. So we are, for 41 years, we have been working on the health and wellness of Black women and girls in this country. And of course, we are looking at and so we have bookend projects. We have a Me Period project talking about the discussions and the differences in the way that we experience our periods and the conversations around our periods. So right in line with you talking about the stereotypes and the biases, we also have to address the cultural problems and the cultural ways that we address the biases and the stereotypes. And so we just started a campaign called Power in the Pause. We did an event in Atlanta the week before before last, where we actually are just trying to get Black women to talk more openly about what we're going through, so that we can get more Black women to participate in forums such as this one and get the information that we need, but also participate in clinical trials for us to get the treatments that we need, because even the therapies that are available have not been tested on us. And we know we're different, so I appreciate the question regarding uterine fibroids and triple negative breast cancer and the way that we experience all of the different symptoms that go along with all of those and impact our hormonal health. So again, I thank you, but I also have to give a little shameless plug out to say, as you're looking at the concerns regarding Black women, we're partnering with organizations. We look for partnerships. We've gotten funding to be able to do research with Black women, but we also want to make sure that we bring Black women to forums such as this and partner with the resources here to be able to move this agenda forward. So thank you.
A lot of the information is kind of grim, but hopefully these women have inspired you and you leave here feeling a little bit more empowered. Thank you all. Enjoy the rest of the day.
I'm just going to take a quick picture. So thank you, everyone. And Caire and I are so appreciative. Thank you, sir. Caire and I and us are so appreciative of everyone being here. And we cut this program a little bit short so that you can drink more and hang out more. As I said, this is a grand hub. This is about us getting to know each other, enjoying each other, and being thankful and grateful for a beautiful view and an office. Who has an office like this? Thank you for your team. Kyle. Thank you. Because Kyle is like a young man who has cheerleaded us for 3 years and allowed us to be in these beautiful offices to express who we are, our womanhood, and we talk about sex and menopause. So thank you. And to be a skincare brand up here and showing a difference, being different, being proprietary, so important to me and Celeste. And thank you, Samara, for being such a great partner. But don't forget, there are 2 things we ask of you. Follow us on Instagram, it's on the seats. Caire_Beauty or Caire Beauty on TikTok. Let's Talk Menopause .org because you can do the unboxing.
Yes. So I have my product.
Yes.
So Unboxing Menopause is a new national campaign to get the FDA to take the black box warning off of local vaginal estrogen. Our goal by the end of this month, the Global Menopause Awareness Month, is to have 25,000 petitions sent. We already have close to 10,000. So, like the 1970s shampoo commercial, share it with 2 friends, tell them to share it with 2 friends, and so on and so on. And if you have a newsletter or an influencer, please send us an email at hello@letstalkmenopause.org, and we can send you an asset or a link to include to your friends and family or to your networks. This is the long game. This is the FDA, guys. We're not going to win this in a month. We may not win it in 10 months, but we're not going to stay quiet around midlife women healthcare. So please join us.
Many supporters tonight, because we put together these events, we can't do it together, on our own. We mentioned Wonder King, who has been an amazing partner for us, but we also have
several other sponsors, including Ursula, Estella, Fuchsia 10,